Chapter 17. The Outcome of the Promise. It was the beginning of a new morning. Everyone had gathered in the workroom. Yesterday, we had borrowed a vacant room that was meant for apprentices in order to stay the night. When we first entered the workroom, there were already 4 people inside that were just staring at the magic steel ingot. All the while sighing, they were turning it over and over in their hands, checking if it was real. The ingot I had handed over was only the size of a human's fist. I thought it was an overly exaggerated reaction, so I asked, "Is it really that rare to see?" "What are you even saying, Uncle San?" Cajun answered me and followed it up with an explanation. Magic ore was the raw form of magic steel. Even in its unrefined form, magic ore was considered to be valuable. The reasoning was very simple. Its rarity and its versatility. There was a major element that existed in this world called magic essence. This magic essence that didn't exist in my original world occupied a major role in this one. When a demon was defeated, very rarely it would drop a condensed mass of magic essence called a magic stone. This magic stone was something like a concentration of energy, which was used as fuel for an invention unique to this world, spirit engineering. This magic stone acted as a core for superior demons, and on top of being more beautiful than most precious gems, it was said to contain an unimaginable amount of energy. As such, magic stones of superior demons were used as the core for many manufactured goods. Craftsmen were said to even use these as raw materials for the accessories they created. Those items would grant various effects upon the wearer, such as an increase in abilities or an effect that would bind the item to the user only. And between magic ores and regular ores, there was one decisive point that set them apart. Without exception, magic ores would only form around the vicinity of superior demons. The reason was that when regular ores are exposed to dense concentrations of magic essence, they would slowly absorb it over a very long period of time. Only when a great amount is contained would regular ores finally undergo a change into magic ores. It was similar to how minerals would suddenly change. Naturally, only powerful demons would be inhabiting locations with high levels of magic essence. Magic ore was hard to find in locations like the habitats of weak demons that adventurers defeated to earn pocket money. For magic ores to form, at the very least, it needed to be a place that ranked demons or above would live in. Incidentally, this was the first time I learned some information regarding the ranking of demons. So that's how it is? Well then, I wonder, I should also be around B rank? If that's what you think, it must be true. Though you're alone in thinking that, everyone thinking to themselves most likely, everyone apart from that Nini Gabuta was thinking the same thing. Well, leaving the idiot aside. Magic ore was already such a difficult thing to obtain, but the amount of magic steel that could be extracted from that said ore was only roughly 35%. In other words, a lump of magic steel the size of a fist was worth money that was 20 times its value in weight. The way money was valued here was almost the same as in my original world. A common way of measuring money, the gold standard system, was adopted across the nations. Well, what all this meant to me was that the metal was much rarer than I had guessed. As expected of me. Not missing a single thing in the cave. By the way, I became just a little bit scared about the fact that I secretly possessed a huge amount of that magic steel. There was no way anyone could find out, but what if someone did? Was I thinking this because I was a petty bourgeois? Anyhow, the main issue was from here on. Magic steel was not simply valuable just because of its rarity. There was a true reason for its worth. That was because the metal possessed a property that had extremely good affinity with guiding magic power. It was possible to control magic essence to a certain degree using imagery in the mind. My magic perception was the same, and even the effects of water manipulation was brought about the same way. The majority of skills used by demons were based on using magic essence in such a way. Although I didn't know much in regards to magic, I had suspected that the theory behind its use was no doubt similar. And so, what if a huge amount of magic essence was included in the raw materials of a weapon? Astonishingly, apparently it will become a weapon that grows. How romantic. What's it like? I want it. Though I managed to firmly hold my inner thoughts back, the words that almost burst from my throat still remained on the very tips of my tongue. It was a weapon that responded to the thoughts of the user, gradually altering its shape into the desired ideal form. And depending on the magic power of the user, It was even possible to freely transform its form in the midst of battle. Furthermore, due to its high affinity with magic essence, it would amplify the power of skills. In a way, when compared to normal weapons, unless there was a great difference in talent, the magic weapon would definitely bring its user victory. Perhaps, though this was just my speculation of a case of pouring money and utmost use of technology, if a superior demon's magic stone was inserted into a blade of pure magic steel, would it possibly become a sword of fire or sword of ice? Though in my heart I was screaming, hurry and make it already, it was not good to get too excited. I felt that it could be done, so I wanted to procure a magic stone if the occasion presented itself. After a long time of explanations, Uncle San and co were now working on the sword. For future reference, we were also observing what they did. Although that Gabuta was no doubt just sleeping. When creating a sword, there were a variety of kinds that could be made. In my heart, the strongest sword is, of course, the Japanese sword. However, even among katanas there was still all kinds of varieties. To contemplate on what kind of sword you could make was also something quite interesting to think about. It had been 10 hours since they had begun work. A long sword that looked nothing out of the ordinary had been completed. What's this? A large part of magic steel was still left unused. The remaining amount was still largely the size of a fist. It was to the extent that made me think to myself, would it be alright to use just that much for one sword? Upon asking, I was given an answer saying, if all of the magic steel was used as raw material for the sword, who knows how much money that would cost. If you thought about it, it was natural. It was no wonder they didn't make such extravagant things like elemental swords. I now understood that it simply required too much money. Apparently, they had used magic steel as the core part, while most of the blade was made out of ordinary iron and steel. I was told that magic essence in the magic steel would seep into the iron and steel parts, then eventually become completely merged. It was said that the more it aged, the stronger it became. Another special characteristic of magic weapons was that the blade would never rust or become chipped. Curiously, I was told that the weapons had a life of their own. If it became completely broken or bent, then the magic essence would burst out and dissipate all at once. Uncle San had explained all that to me, all the while holding up and displaying the sword he had completed. It was quite interesting to listen to. I took up the finished sword and gazed at it in my hands. Though I had no hands. Looking carefully, although it was of a simple design, it was perfectly straight. It could be said that there was no unnecessary part to it. It didn't appear to be meant for pure cutting, which was the main principle behind a Japanese sword, but still seemed capable to be used for slashing attacks. I see. The goal of this design was to use this simplicity as a base to make it easier to realize an individual's respective ideal form. Keeping that in mind, I could agree with the way it was made. Well then. As promised, Uncle San and the others had completed a magnificent sword for me. Now it was my turn. Alright. From here on I'll be working in secret. I'm sorry, but after confirming the raw materials, I want everyone to leave the room, saying that I made sure that everyone would leave the room. After all, I couldn't afford to let anyone know my manufacturing method. Mainly because it would be troublesome to explain. All the necessary materials are assembled in this room. But will you be alright? If needed, I can help out. I'll be fine. Rather than that, during the next 3 days, make sure not to peek in the room, okay? It's a promise, I got it. I'll believe in you and wait. After that, Uncle San and the others left the room. For some reason, Gabuta also went with them. There might be a need to strangle some sense into that idiot at least once. Now then, today's recipe on the menu shall be how to make longsword a la carte. The method of production was simple. The first step was to swallow up the model product. Next, what I had to do with all these materials lined up here was to swallow them all. Chew, chew, gulp. And then, I would mix them well inside my stomach. All I had to do was repeat that process 19 times over, and it would be finished easy, wasn't it? But still, good children should never imitate this, right? And that was how I carried out my work, with my head full of silly thoughts. This was bad. The time needed to copy one sword took roughly 10 seconds. 190 seconds, a little over 3 minutes, and I had made all 19 longswords. It hadn't been 5 minutes since I had driven out Uncle San and the others. How should I put it? Even though I knew I could do it, The way I did it so easily made me feel a little guilty toward all of the hardworking craftsmen sans out there. Predator was seriously too cheat-like. Well, what now? Since I had told them something like, don't peek in for 3 days, was I to confine myself in here for next 3 days? No. As one would expect, there wouldn't be any use in pointlessly staying here. I might as well be out with it and tell them bluntly that I was done, botong. Loudly opening the door, I stepped outside. Cajun-san and the 3 brothers were looking over in worry as they hurriedly rose to stand up. Kabuta was sleeping. You, to be asleep within a mere 5 minutes, since I was in there, what was up with you? Indeed. That was the moment I'd decided somewhere in my mind I would really strangle him sometime. Hey, what's wrong? Did something happen? Was the materials perhaps not enough, or was it that it was impossible after all? Everyone was questioning with the same concern in their faces. Millimeters. No, actually, you see. All those eyes full of worry was hard to stand. I couldn't help but put on airs. Still the same as ever, I had such a bad personality. I'm sure I couldn't be cured of this, even if I died. Just kidding, actually, I've already finished it all. How? Altogether they raised their shocked voices in perfect harmony. Well, of course they'd be surprised. CHERS, in honor of successfully completing our work, we were drinking in a bar. We were celebrating under the pretext of having made sure the goods were safely delivered. Well, I did tell them that it wasn't a necessary thing to do, but they said, now, there'll be plenty of pretty elder sisters there, yeah. Young pretties and mature ladies. It's just the right place for gentlemen to visit. Third bro is silent. Sort of PRN, SX drive has activated to an amazing tentacle 100%. Hey now. If Master Rimuru doesn't go, the party won't begin. I didn't want to, but there was no choice. These guys were really a handful. Man, my sincere image of a refined man will go to WASTE. This was really troubling. I was told the name of the establishment was Night Butterfly. Would there really be butterflies? I wouldn't forgive them if there are moths. No, it's not like I'm interested in that, okay? And while thinking these thoughts, we entered the shop. OMYWELCOME, welcome to our SHOP collective. Welcome by waitresses, hostesses, WHEW. Extremely beautiful women were standing all lined up. Oh, those long ears. Earofu. No, I mean, it's an ELFPRN, ERFCK. No, I mean, it's an ELF Wado man. Their clothes were too RTVEALING. You could almost see, but couldn't. What was with that? I was even using magic perception with all of my strength. Normally I use it on a 10% output low energy consumption mode. These elder sisters were all resolutely dancing in between the lines of modesty. Arg, was this a challenge? Was this a challenge towards me? Damn it all. You would. How cute what? Even though I had my eyes on it, FIRST smush. Boing. Bouncing sound effects, basically it's here. On my body of sensation of pion. On my back it was boing. Was this paradise? Although you seem discontent at first, it looks like you're having a great time of it, gasp. Oh no, for the great me to be like this, no, not that much. I guess that was a bit too forced. Not a single one of them believed in me. However, I couldn't help it. What could I do? I mean, right now I'm on top of an elf's lap and being hugged from behind. My heart is so deeply moved. If only my late SON, currently non-existent, was still alive, he would be so excited and frolicking about. We were passing away the time and enjoying ourselves when someone interrupted us. My, isn't this Cajun dono? That's no good at all, to bring a vulgar demon into such a refined establishment as this, a provoking voice had called over to where we were. Who was that? Who was this old man? All of a sudden, our surroundings had quietened down. As if they disliked that old man, the serving girls all had a hint of dislike on their faces. But it was hard to notice unless you carefully observed them. Unusually for a dwarf, the old man was of a slender build and rather tall. Though I say that, he was around the height of a normal human. Hey, madam. Do you permit the entering of demons into this shop? And no, even though it's a demon, it was only a harmless-looking slime, so, Hewitt. It's still a demon. Am I wrong? Do you mean to say that a slime isn't a demon? No, It's not like that, I never meant," Mama-san had replied non-committally in an evasive manner, trying to avoid those angry words, but the old man paid no further attention to her. It was plain to see that the old man's objective was us. "This isn't good, that's the Minister Bester." "So that was the rumored Minister Bester? I see, how should I put it?" His face had a high-strung and obstinate look about it. At that moment, HMPH. "For a demon, this would suit you well, saying such nonsense." He splashed the top of my head with water. That really got on my nerves, but I firmly put up with it. Since my opponent was the minister, I couldn't let my quick temper get the better of me and make trouble for Uncle San, Cajun, or this shop's Mama-san. To be banned from this shop or something like that, I didn't want to experience such a sad thing. But just when I had resolved to endure it all, just because we were nice and quiet, you get full of yourself. Uncle San kicked the table flying with a bang and stood up. "Hey, Bester. Bastard, acting so rudely to my guest, are you ready for what's coming to you? Hey. Hang on, Cajun-san, the other party is the minister, is that okay?" Minister Bester had become stiff from astonishment, and I was also jumping up and down in a panic. A gentle and soft sensation exploded from my back. It wasn't on purpose. Absolutely. "Yo, you bastard." To dare to use such words towards myself, Minister Bester couldn't even properly speak due to his anger and surprise. "Isn't it about time you became silent?" Bellowing in a fury, Cajun-san sent an unhesitating fist flying towards Minister Bester's face. "Rimuru Dana, you were searching for skilled craftsmen, right? Would I be lacking? You would be far from lacking, but, I should say, will this be alright?" But well, after hitting the minister, there would be no place for him in the country now. However, in a man's life, there would be times when words were unneeded. I'll take you up on those words. I look forward to working with you, Cajun. I didn't care about the minor details. If Cajun wanted to come with me, I was just fine with that. Pretty words can go to hell. I'll be satisfied with living the way I want. Cajun and I passionately nodded to one another. And so, our promise was fulfilled. But still, from here on, how should we escape the country? As expected, when in society, if you didn't act with prudence, a mountain load of problems would come about. Even if you were to put up a front, those problems wouldn't simply go away. Chapter 18, The End of Turmoil. Now, then. Of course, hitting a cabinet minister is very bad. Of course, brother, what have you done? So said Kaido, having brought in the soldiers. Never missing a day of service, his earlier absence was surprising. He was so diligent that even when invited to go drinking, he'd refuse by saying he had duties to attend to. Thus, for an incident to occur while he was on duty was naturally surprising. They could easily run away, but that would be a poor choice, HMPH. Just some light punishment, the idiot who dared, being rude to my benefactor Rimuru Dana. He replied while pointing at Minister Bester, who was being nursed by 4 soldiers. Bester, on the other hand, was so shocked and surprised that he couldn't even stand. Blood was dripping from his nose, he glared stupidly at me. Not even in his wildest dreams had he imagined being punched. Thus, he was so surprised that he probably didn't even feel the pain. Oi, just some light punishment? Making an enemy of the minister is very bad, Kaido muttered with a foreboding sigh. Anyways, I'll have to restrain the people present, he said, and gave his subordinates an order. But, only audible to us, he added, we won't harm you, so please come peacefully. He mumbled. Of course, I had no intention of causing further trouble. Thus, moving towards Mama-san, I handed her 5 gold coins. And, in reply to her surprise, I included the inconvenience fee. I'll be back. Such were my salutations. This is a good shop, and I'd be very upset if I could no longer come here. That is how we were being escorted away by the soldier, aren't we forgetting something? Right? We forgot Gabuta. We didn't bring that idiot to the shop. In any case, that foolish action seems to have earned Cajun the punishment in the psychity hell. I'd thought they'd hang him upside down or something, so this seems bad. Which is why I wrapped Gabuta up with sticky thread and hung him from the ceiling. Wait. That's heartless. Take me there too. And though he cried out similar grief-stricken phrases, hoping that we'd listen. But to these words, idiot. Your actions have their own consequences. If you don't like it, just summon up the rest, Stormfang wolves. We left him with hanging there with what we thought was an impossible task. Anyways, the goblins, or rather the hobgoblins, should be fine even if they receive no food or water for a week. Though if the confinement continues any longer, we'll have to break out and save Gabuta. And having so decided, I forgot about him for the time being. My conscience did ask, isn't this too pitiful? But he's a sturdy guy. He'll be fine. So the 5 of us were brought into the royal palace. But I may have exaggerated a bit, we weren't restrained with much force. Felt more like we were coming voluntarily. Well, were coerced into doing so. As a result, we spent 2 days in prison. Or so I'd like to call it, but we received good food and the room was amicably furnished. All 5 were placed in the same place, so rather than a prison, it was just a big room. Their treatment of us was also relatively pleasant. My short temper got you in this mess, forgive me. Cajun came over to apologize. However, no one gathered here particularly minded in the first place. Cajun-san, we're fine. Don't sweat it. Exactly. Don't worry about it, Pops. The 3 seem to be of the same opinion. That aside, once we are freed, we intend to come along with Cajun-san. Rimuru Dana, would our presence be a bother? The 3rd also seemed like he wanted to say something, but as I clearly lacked the power to understand, I was just happy with the sentiment. Alright. I guess I'll say it again, you'll be in my care. However, I plan to work you hard, so be prepared. Yeah. And, well, that's the kind of discussion we had. The first day had thus passed, and on the second night, about that cabinet minister, he really seemed to hate Cajun, didn't he? Is there a reason for that? I nonchalantly asked. But hearing this, Cajun grimaced and began his tale. So apparently Cajun used to be one of the captains of the Royal Knights. That is, there are 7 platoons among the Royal Knights, with each having their own captain. Construction platoon, commoner platoon, emergency relief platoon. Heavy armament platoon, magic assault platoon, magic support platoon. And, the most important, the King's personal royal guard. Cajun served as the captain of the construction platoon. His aide at the time was none other than Bester. That guy was from a family of a Marquess, and they say he bought his status with gold, thus he was jealous of me, who was a commoner born of commoners. Must have been difficult, I imagine. Receiving orders from a mere commoner must have been very disgraceful. I, myself, did not try to be considerate of my subordinates' feelings. I just desperately tried to please His Majesty, and then, that incident occurred. Having so introduced, he continued to discuss that incident. An incident that resulted in Cajun leaving the army. Magic battle gear incident. At the time, the construction platoon had no new inventions and was evaluated the worst among the 7 platoons. In a nation founded on technological progress, the construction platoon should be flourishing. So claimed Bester's group. For now, we should carefully continue our research. So claimed Cajun's group. The arguments fueled further rivalry, and debates never produced any results. At the same time, they did have a joint project with the elves on the magical battle gear. We must succeed with this project and forever establish our name, was what Bester thought. As a result of his independent and rash action, the demonic sorcery corps had gone out of control, and the project halted indefinitely. Had they carefully assembled the most talented group, the magic battle gear project would not have met such an end. In conclusion, Cajun took the blame and left the army. As for Bester, he was so desperate to push his failure on Cajun that he had forged military records and planted other false evidence. In short, Bester is a stereotypical villain. And in some sense, he's easy to understand. So to summarize, Cajun was waiting for the time the country would need him and would immediately jump at the opportunity to come back without realizing that it would cause him harm. That kind of story? But really, wouldn't the death penalty suit cowardly bastards like Bester the best? Well, maybe the death penalty would be going too far. Well, in any case, with my departure, maybe even he can finally relax. Those words ended his tale. After hearing about the incident, the 3 brothers also seemed to have started to hate the minister. Well, such a story will make even me hate him. However, he did hit a noble. It would be strange for him to leave without any trouble. And in response to my worries, it should be fine, probably. Although retired, my position as a captain did earn me the rank of baronet. Had it been a case of a commoner hitting a noble, I probably wouldn't be able to avoid the death penalty. Having said that, he laughed loudly. I couldn't laugh at all, though. If worst comes to worst, we're breaking out. As for the completely unrelated person me, I'll just pretend to be a normal slime until things quiet down. So I silently thought, and the day of the trial came. We were led before the king. The dwarf's hero king. Though in front of him, you couldn't feel that overpowering aura. The current king is Eldwargo. With his eyes closed, he sits deeply on the throne. Looking like a typical dwarf, he had a sturdy build. His armor concealed his excessive energy. Though he could easily be distinguished by his darker skin and jet black hair, swept back. He's strong. Been a while since my instincts last cried out in alarm. To both of his sides, the knights stand at attention. Though I feel that those two are strong as well, they seem dull in comparison to the king. As that guy is just a monster. I had planned to run away if needed, but with this, his mere presence forced my distracted mind to focus. This was probably the first time I felt danger in this world. There was one man kneeling before the king, as if confirming something. Having received the king's permission, he stood, and the trial shall now begin. Silence your voices. He informed us of its beginning. Taking up an hour, both sides' stories were presented. The parties in question ourselves were not permitted to speak. The only ones who could freely speak are nobles rank count and above. The rest must wait for the king's explicit permission. If I had to speak, what would I say? Speak out of turn, and your guilt shall be confirmed. Moreover, we'll also include a free insult the king special. Even if the charges against you were false, the rules stay the same. No choice but to leave everything to your representative. That representative, these past 2 days, has shown his face many times. If I had to say, he's kind of like our lawyer. I wonder if he's any good. Those kind of worries tend to prove true too often, thus, in this way, the drunken relaxed Bester Dono, while making his way into another shop, was assaulted. Such action must not be pardoned easily. Is that the truth? I, more than listening to Cajun Dono, have investigated with the shop owners. All my previous statements are, in fact, completely true. What did he say? Someone we thought to be our ally had unexpectedly betrayed us? Isn't this bad? When I look at Cajun's face, it first turned bright red, but slowly paled. Well, that's to be expected. I mean, he can't even complain. Oh, and by the way, the representative is not allowed to lie. If his lies get revealed, he gets the death penalty. So without some extreme circumstances, to lie is unthinkable, thus the system that forbids those of lower birth, in this case, the accused, to speak in front of the king, is being abused in the worst of ways. Your Majesty. Have you heard enough? Please bestow a harsh punishment on them. High with excitement, Bester proposes thus to the king. Moreover, while looking at us, he shows a triumphant smile. That bastard, I really should have clobbered him. The king, with his eyes closed, refuses to move a muscle. Seeing this, those close by announce his decision. Silence. We shall now announce the verdict. Assailant, Cajun. You are sentenced to 20 years of forced labor in the mines. The rest, accomplices. You are sentenced to 10 years of forced labor in the mines. That concludes this. Wait, a deep, heavy voice resounded through the hall. The king opened his eyes and looked at Cajun. It's been a while, Cajun. Are you in good health, eh? More importantly, I am happy to see His Majesty in good health. Thus answered Cajun. Seems like answering the king's questions is allowed. Enough. Those with you are the real question. Do you have intention of returning to service? The hall immediately filled with noise. Bester's face turned blue. The representative who betrayed us turned deathly pale. I fear, Your Majesty, I already have a master. That pledge has become this one's treasure. This treasure, even if it be His Majesty's order, I shall never part with. Angry words resounded in return. The royal guard directed their killing intent at Cajun. Even then, Cajun faced the king without a hint of fear, but rather with grand price. Seeing this, the king closed his eyes again. Is that so? Having so muttered, he ordered his attendant to call silence again. And I'll declare the verdict. Steel your hearts. Cajun and company, I deport you from the kingdom. You shall not be permitted to remain here even a single night longer. That is all. Now, begone from my sight. The king opened his eyes wide and so proclaimed. That's the air of the king. Intimidating enough to make my body tremble. But even so, the king looked rather lonely to me. And thus, with the conclusion of the trial, we returned to Cajun's store. Just went for a little drink, but it became such an incident. Now then, we need to quickly pack and set off. And speaking of, is Gabuta alright? Well, only 3 days had passed. With some worry in my heart, we opened the punishment room and, you have returned. Was it fun? Next time, please bring me along. Waking on top of the sofa, Gabuta said these words. What the hell? How did he break free from the sticky thread? If I look closely, what I thought was a pillow as a stormed wolf. Really? He really summoned them. Oi, Gabuta-kun. You were able to summon the wolves? Yeah. I was. Please come. I called, and they came. He makes it sound too easy. No hobgoblin had succeeded with summons up until now. Maybe, did nutrient deprivation awaken some latent ability? Nah, no way. That's impossible for Gabuta. Must have been just luck. And that's when I noticed the petrified dwarf that had finally noticed the wolf. What are you doing? Not going to prepare? I asked the dwarfs. Oi, wait a second. Why is there a black fang wolf in here? That's right. There's a B-rank monster blocking our escape. They seem to be panicking. That was an interesting, a comical reaction. It's fine. No problem. No different from your average dog. I keep him at home. I had intended for those words to calm them, but they were struck speechless instead. Since we have no time, I couldn't waste any of it for explanation. So while having the dwarfs change into traveling gear, I chazzed the rest out. Remaining in the building, I began to absorb everything. Not even close to full capacity. But I decided to refrain from absorbing the whole building, as that would probably get me arrested again. Thus, we had finished the preparations for our journey, and thus we headed towards the meeting spot. Militaristic state Dworgen. We'd be involved with it many times from now on. But to us who were escaping from it, that kind of thing we could not even imagine. That place was wrapped in silence. To such extent that you wouldn't believe it was ever noisy. Since the 5 criminals had been expelled from this hall, not a single person had moved. As if breaking the silence. Now, Bester. Is there anything you'd like to say? Why, with all due respect, Your Majesty. This is a misunderstanding. There must be some mistake. Such was Minister Bester's unsightly appeal that seemed to want to grab onto the king. In contrast, the king had showed no emotion and remained stoic. A misunderstand, that would have been losing a faithful minister. What are you saying? I cannot fathom how come you believe that man had sworn his loyalty to Your Majesty, Bester. You are mistaken. The case with Cajun had been lost long ago. The faithful minister I had lost is none other than you. A quiet voice revealing no emotion. Whereas Bester shrieked in response. I must come up with an excuse. He frantically thought. But he couldn't form a coherent thought. What had the king just said? The one he lost is me? That means Bester wanted to come up with something. But no thoughts would form. I'll ask again. Bester. Do you have anything left to say? Frightening. His head was filled with fear. I have to answer his question. He thought, but no words would come out. With all due respect, enough, I had expected more from you. I always waited. Even for you to come clean on the magical battle gear incident. But, even now, look. The king said, pointing at 2 items. Sometime previously, an attendant had brought them. Bester stared at them with empty eyes. Something he had never seen before, a liquid sphere wrapped in cloth. And a single longsword. Do you know what this is? As he was asked, he carefully observed. The sphere he had not recognized, but the sword was the one that Cajun always carried. Think. In place of the king, the attendant had explained. Bester's mind would require many more hours to understand the transpired. Not a revival pill, but a restoration pill made from hippot grass. That of complete restoration. With dwarven technology, the best they could achieve was a purity of 98%. At 98%, it would never have the effect of high-grade medicine. But this was at 99%. Bester's face lit up in surprise. He wanted to know the extraction method. But what should have surprised Bester more was the longsword. The demon ore used in the blades had begun to adapt itself to the user, so was reported. But that's impossible, it normally takes 10 years for that to happen. Bester, in shock, was beset by such thoughts. If that is true, such was the thought that dominated his mind. The one who had produced these items was the slime. Thanks to your efforts, we no longer have a connection to the slime. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Bester knew all too well the depth of the king's anger. There was nothing else he could say, nothing. "I have nothing to say, Your Majesty." Tears welled up within him. I had been abandoned by the king. He finally understood. He had just wanted to be of use to the king. And to be recognized. That was his with, and yet, since when did he go wrong? Was it when he got jealous of Cajun? Or was it well before then? That he did not know. All that he knew that he betrayed the king's expectations. That sole truth. Is that so? Then, Bester. You are forbidden from entering the kingdom ever again. Never show yourself before me from now on. However, I'll leave you some parting words. You have served well." Upon hearing the king's words, Bester responded with a deep bow. And thus left the hall. To repay the foolish act he had committed, at the same time as Bester left, the guards restrained his accomplice, the treacherous representative. That he saw from the corner of his eyes. "Spies. Keep watch over the slime. Never let him leave your sight. Never." The king had raised his voice so to give this order. That usually quiet king, to raise his voice. Everyone tensed at the gravity of the order. Even at the cost of our lives. The spies, having so replied, disappeared. The king pondered thus. What was that monster? That was a unique creature. Letting him loose upon the world will probably end our peace.